What's going on, guys? Welcome to June's episode of Game of the Month, the show where we pick a game at random every month, and at the end of the month we talk about it. My name's Seth, and joining me today, of course, is Chevy. Chevy, how you doing since whatever the last thing we did was? And I don't remember. What was it? Was it one of the reactions? Something. I put up one of my TikToks on here. That was the last thing I did. But anyway, how you doing? And it's your month to pick Game of the Month, so you're excited about that. And yeah.
I'm doing okay. It's a little warm in my my room, so I'm kind of trying to get my energy levels back right now. But
Cooking, dude. You're just basting in there.
yeah, it's been pretty gross. To be
Getting
honest.
warmer.
But yeah, otherwise I'm doing pretty good. I picked pretty quickly, but there's things I definitely want to play right now. And yeah,
Yeah, without you even hinting in any way, between Elden Ring, Shadow of the Earth Tree being out, Final Fantasy 14 expansion being out,
yeah.
you got some very current options, you're playing both of those options, but then there's so many games we have to play. So I'm really curious to see what game you guys pick, or what game you pick. That was just automation. My brain's just on autopilot right now. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
All right. I'm good. I'm ready to find out. And let's just jump into that. So if you're new here, typically we pick at random every 3 months every 2 months. Then on the third month, we have me pick, we pick, he picks, and then you guys pick, which is what that automation was earlier. So yeah, I'll give you the floor. You can reveal what we'll be playing in July. Okay. And what you want.
I mean, it was a pretty simple choice for me. I'm kind of obsessed with playing it at the moment, and I have been able to for a while because I've been playing it co-op. But my pick is Elden Ring. It's kind of just on my mind every day right now, so I just would like to play it. But
okay, so I have to play it. Cool.
Yep.
Because from my perspective, I haven't touched Shadow of the Earth Tree yet. I've wanted to.
Touched it.
I've wanted to, but I haven't been in the Souls-like mindset lately. I've just been playing a lot of competitive shit lately, so I think that's where my brain's been at. But now that I have to play it, I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it because I fucking love Elden Ring. So that's cool that I have to play that. So we'll be playing Elden Ring in July, which is definitely good. Anything else you want to say on that?
I'm just hoping that the co-op mod comes out tomorrow as planned, so that I can go back to playing, because I was partway through a playthrough. So, and the mod will be updated to allow for the DLC. So,
yeah, I didn't even touch the co-op mod. Maybe I should try it out, even though it'd be a little late now that you guys are.
I mean, I can still join. Yeah, I just use a lower grade weapon or something.
Does the mod work smoothly? Is there any weird?
I don't know about the new one.
Streets of Rage 4 lag?
Building it from the ground up, so we'll see. There'll probably be some hiccups as it comes out. But
yeah, for sure, that makes sense.
The biggest issues the original mod had was occasionally there'd be desyncing issues. So someone would spawn in and get on their horse, and they would just be floating in the air instead of being on torrent. Or you'd see someone fighting in a corner, but the mob wouldn't be next to them, but they were still fighting it. The hit points was still lining up correctly, but the mob placement wasn't. That was pretty rare, but it would happen sometimes. But each person was still fighting the boss, so
for a free mod, though, you can't really complain.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I went ahead and I donated $10 to the guy.
I would.
Yeah, he's doing something that the game, a lot of people want from the game.
And even the lead dude of FromSoft was talking about how it's something they'll maybe consider whatever going forward,
games, yeah.
Just because of how much people want that, which it's already in the game. You've been for a long time, already kind of doing co-op for a long time.
Yeah.
Since Demon Souls. So, yeah. Cool. Looking forward to playing that, and hopefully you guys are as well. But we're here to talk about the game we did play in June, which was Remnant 2, randomly picked, and let's talk about that. So if you haven't had a chance to play the excellent, spoiler, game that is Remnant 2, it is a up to 3-player cooperative Souls-like light shooter where you go to realm, battling enemies, fighting bosses, some with different mechanics, some bosses that aren't even like other bosses that do weird things. I'm trying to be vague here. And the game has a lot of loot, not randomly dropping, but specifically placed in places that can randomly show up or not. Yeah, so a lot of loot, a lot of guns, a lot of upgrades, rings, amulets, all sorts of stuff. We don't even have most of it. There's so much to find. A lot of secrets in the game, a lot of puzzles. When I'm talking about secrets, I mean like locations to find, but also like invisible walls. So like stuff that's really trying to not like be known that's there.
Or like doors that won't open if you don't have like a piece of equipment.
Yeah,
and stuff
like
that.
really intricate stuff. One of the archetypes, the game has archetypes. One of the archetypes had to be data mined from the game to figure out how the hell to unlock it, because you needed like a specific item in a specific location fighting a specific boss to get the archetype. But yeah, the game has archetypes, basically classes that have specializations. You can mix your archetypes, only two, but at that point you will level each one 50%. If you're playing one archetype, all the XP will go to that, and it's a really interesting way to mix synergies between archetypes. Archetypes being like one that's more like tanky, that's a medic, one that's DPS based, one that's long distance DPS based, one with a pet. Well, there's a couple with pets.
Two pets.
Summoner. There's the one with the dog. All sorts of archetypes. I won't go into every single one of them. And yeah, what else am I missing?
I mean, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the dungeons don't even have boss fights. Sometimes they're just an obstacle course or a puzzle, and then you get through the whole thing, and there's a reward at the end. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so quite a bit of stuff to be finding and shooting stuff for. We both played it, and we both, I think, just played Forgotten Kingdom DLC this month. So we've played this in the past, so we've played it extensively. We've both beaten the game. We've both beaten both DLCs at this point. So let's jump into your impressions of Remnant 2 in June.
Okay. I mean, we've talked about it a couple times on the channel already, so it's not going to be a surprise for our regulars. But for people new here, this game is probably one of my favorite co-op games. I think I rated it really highly last year as well. If not, was it my game? I don't think it was my game of the year, but it was definitely mentioned. I believe.
Those are my top 3 for sure.
Yeah. It is fantastic. The imagination and thought that has gone into the game is very noticed when playing it, and I very much appreciate that.
There's almost no games with the same dedication to them in terms of what they do with this game.
Well, one thing I always a lot of people compliment FromSoft on as an example is map design and hiding items and stuff like that. These guys also do a good job in that in a different way. It's not like Miyazaki style map design, but the maps are still pretty interesting and intricate, especially with not in the DLCs but in the base game, the random variants that can happen in the maps every time you play, so you can get a different experience every time. That is one thing about the DLCs. They're more of a crafted experience, which is also fun. It's nice to be able to do both. Difficulty can definitely be hard. The game will punish you really quickly if you are not prepared for it.
And it's worth mentioning too, it has 5 or 6 difficulty settings too. So if it's getting too easy for you because of your gear, you can just increase the difficulty, and it gets really fucking hard.
Which doesn't improve your loot, but it does improve what's effectively a gem system. Yeah. You get better drops on higher difficulties, which is pretty much the end game of this game, is to increase those to fine tune your build to optimize it. So
more scrap and XP as well.
Yeah. Which I am starved constantly.
Scrapless.
So, yeah, the game has a interesting, I don't want to necessarily say story. There is a story there, but it's mostly the lore part of the game I really like. You get little tidbits as you're doing side quests and like things you read. Like there'll be books on tables and stuff like that you can read through, and it kind of like talks about like the zone you're in and some guy's perspective of something they went through, and it's pretty fascinating, especially because without going too spoiler of details, this is a post-apocalyptic game. So you get these stories of basically like better times, or like as an event, the event of it getting worse was happening and what people were going through and stuff like that. So, and I really like that. The audio cues in the game are also really nice because you can tell when a special mob comes up because you get this like high pitched like violin string thing that happens, and so it's really hard to like not know that one's coming. Without it just basically like throwing up text on the screen,
It's basically warning you, while you're in mid-combat, or that you're just getting through the map too fast, because it does have a similar system like Left 4 Dead back in the day. That'll send like an elite mob after you, and it's nice because you kind of have to, unless you're playing something that's super easy. But if you're playing on an appropriate difficulty, you kind of got to like pause and look for the dude, because you're like, this guy's going to really fuck things up if we don't take care of him quick. So it was just kind of reminiscent to when a tank shows up in Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
It's an old reference at this point, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like, you got to just make sure he's not going to show up and start murdering everybody while you're fighting. So it's got an interesting system like that.
Yeah, and then there's also the perk of they drop a specific upgrade material, so it's worth taking them out as well, so that you can continue to upgrade your gear.
Yeah, you want them to show up for gear's sake, but they can really exacerbate things. Also, when you're talking about sound cues, the game is full of them. So invisible walls will make a sound. It's very faint, but you can kind of hear it. And you're like, wait, what the hell is that? But that will also throw you off sometimes because you'll be running around, I'll hear something, and it's you with a buff.
Yeah.
And it's going on you. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like that one time I was just like, what am I hearing? And we're both like looking. And then I got close to you. I was like, oh, it's you. Okay. But then also bosses, one thing I love is some of the bosses you could like fight without even looking at them because they make sound cues when they attack. And some of the bosses, you might be thinking like, wow, I might make it too easy. Some of the bosses can be really fucking hard, especially if you're playing on the appropriate difficulty for your character. And those sound cues really come in handy when you're getting like a perfect dodge, which if your build is built in a certain way might actually help you do a perfect dodge or whatever. But I love the audio design in this game.
Well, like one of the fights me and you were doing, I was fat rolling and you weren't, and so like I couldn't get out of the AoE ever. Like,
I was confused. You're like, I can't dodge that guy. I'm like, it's not that hard. And then like after the fight, I saw you roll. I was like, oh, I had like double the roll ability. Yeah.
So I literally couldn't get out of an attack because I just had too heavy of armor on. So I had to adjust my armor a little bit to accommodate for that, which is going to be familiar for any Souls player. So.
Which I love because there's just a huge diversity in build potential in this game. It's huge, especially the further you play, the more shit you unlock, the more armor types you unlock, which feel kind of scarce in the beginning. But now I'm like, I got quite a bit of armor types. I'm actually making decisions on picking this, picking that, and then based with the rings and stuff you have equipped, you do run into situations where you're fat rolling, I'm not. But then sometimes I fought dudes where like, I'm gonna put on a shitload of armor and like really stack up my fire resistance for this dude, and it helps. So
yeah, well, and that's worth noting too, is like armor is for armor and resistances. Rings are for substats, which are the more of the build aspect of it. And then on top of that, those aforementioned, I can't remember what they're called, but they're effectively gems, will push you a little further substat wise. So there's a lot to play with, which is nice. Also, the mod system for the weapons gives you even more to play with, which is nice as well.
Yep, all weapons can level up, so they get stronger. Some hit 10 if it's a special weapon. Some hit 20 if it's just a default weapon.
Similar to
or standard. Yeah. The special weapons that can only go to 10 typically have a predetermined ability that you can't switch out, but the ones that don't have that, you can switch out abilities that you find in craft, and then they all have modifications as well, so you can change things like the last bolt of your clip does something, or like extended ammo, or all sorts of different things to really dial in and make your weapon work with your build. So again, a lot of build potential.
Yeah, and on the weapons where you can put abilities, depending on the ability, it actually changes the appearance of the weapon as well, which is kind of cool. So,
Yep, love that.
yeah. The other like big thing I want to say is if you played Remnant 1 and you're going to Remnant 2, one of my criticisms of Remnant 1 was I felt short. This game does not have that problem.
No.
So there's a lot to do in this game, which is nice. I mean, there's plenty of replayability in the first game, but the story was like really short feeling. As for in this game, it actually feels appropriate, I would say.
Yeah, we've talked about this game so much on the channel that like it's not a surprise, but like this is such a perfect sequel because I fucking loved the first Remnant. I talked it up all the time, tried to sell it to people. We're like, Remnant 2 came out, and I was like, holy fuck, this is like Remnant 1, but everything's better. Everything's better. Luckily, it caught on with a lot of people at that point too. But it's nice to see people get really excited about Remnant 2 because it is just the first game, but everything has been improved. Which is really cool. And then the whole archetype system stuff, because the first game was not quite the same.
A little more simple.
Yeah. But you know, when I'm talking about it's better in every way, even, you know, playtime without the DLCs was already better. Way more reasons to replay, even though I replayed the first game a lot. But it's shorter replays. But then with these DLCs, and then you beat these DLCs and we look up, like, what did we miss? Oh, you missed a lot of things because that one boss you fought, there's like 6 different outcomes that you can do with that boss to get different gear.
Yeah, it's wild, and some of those I wonder how people even figured it out because I'm just like, holy crap, dude! Like some of them will be like
the Invoker in the new fucking DLC.
Yeah.
Who figured that out?
Some of the bosses, they'll be like, you have to like kill them at a very specific moment before they do a specific move, or like you'll get one ending to that fight, or you do it after that move for a different ending, or like you talk to this person first, and that I don't know, it's insane.
Yeah, in the default game, there's a couple people you could talk to. They're like, I need you to do something for me, and it's like, oh, okay, and then you kind of learn more about them, and you're like, I don't know if I agree with them now, or I'll keep doing what they want, and you do what they need, and then you get something, or you're like, fuck you, and you fight them, and you kill them, you get something. But you can't do the other ones. You have to play the game again. But then in the DLC,
do what they want, but then tell them you're not going to give them the item. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's,
yeah, exactly.
Fight both. You know,
there's like such intricate routing of how to complete quest lines, basically. And then in the DLC, I think it's the last boss, so I won't talk about too much, but there's like one, if you kill him while he's kneeling, you get something.
Specifically while he's kneeling.
Yeah. And I was like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
So and then another thing is like you get his melee weapon, and the other one you get a gun, and it's like, holy, like every time we find out more and more about how many different ways to unlock different things there are, it's just, like, always feel overwhelmed because I'm like, that is crazy.
Well, it's like in the first DLC, there's a key, but there's 2 doors that can take it, but you can only use it once.
Yep.
And so like that playthrough, you have to make your decision. So
you're talking about on the first DLC with the lighthouse? Yeah, it's funny because me and you played through that. We did the one thing, and then we looked it up. Like, what the fuck else? What's up with that door that's locked still? It's like, oh, you have to pick one or the other. And we're like, shit, we're going to have to replay through it. And then, I think it was not this month. I think it was like maybe last month. I was just playing Remnant 2 randomly. And I was trying to roll the lighthouse again because it's a specific instance that can randomly pop. Yeah. I ran through this bitch like 12 times and it wouldn't pop up in this DLC, and I was like, dude, what the fuck? Finally it pops up, and it took like 2 hours to get it to pop up finally. I like went to your room. I was like, hey, remember that lighthouse? You're like, yeah. I'm like, I just got it. Do you want to hop in real quick so we can get that item? So you hopped in. You're doing something else. You hopped in. We went and grabbed it. Just because I was like, here's an opportunity to get that other thing knocked out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and also, it's, as it is standard for most multiplayer games these days, though we just played one that wasn't so good about it, but just seamless hop in, hop out multiplayer. So, and the difficulty adjusts accordingly, which is nice. Then boss fights are mechanical, so they're interesting. So it's not just, pew pew, I win. It's, do all the mechanics and survive while also shooting. And sometimes, without saying too much about the last boss of this DLC, weird keep moving or you're screwed mechanics, which was super fascinating to see. So, but yeah, overall, it's a great game. I couldn't recommend it enough to people if you enjoy, loot. I won't get into that just because we got to do recommendations, but yeah. I think it's up most people's alley, to be honest. The only hindrance I think for most people is going to be it can be a little difficult. So.
Yeah, but you can turn that down. So I would recommend somebody who's maybe worried about that to play the friend if you can and just turn the difficulty down, because I think the default difficulty isn't the lowest one you can go to. So
I don't think so.
Yeah. Anything else?
No.
I pretty much agree with everything you said. I love this game. I love the first game. Love this game. It is easily one of my favorite, like top 5 cooperative shooters, top 3 maybe cooperative shooters ever made. Up there with Deep Rock Galactic. I mean, like these. If you want to play a cooperative shooter with a friend, Remnant 2 is like such an easy pick. It's like you're gonna have a good time. So yeah, basically everything about it. Like I said, I agree with most things you said, so I'll talk a little bit about the DLC we played through without going into spoilers too much. If you don't know, the base game has a lot of randomness to it. Like I said before, that lighthouse I was trying to get to pop on the DLC was annoying, but we got it. But in the DLCs, there's less randomness, even though I just talked about one part of that DLC was random. They're more curated, like you said. They're more story-oriented. They basically expand the zones that already exist in the base game, which I think is kind of a cool thing. Like, you play these zones, you're like, oh, I want more zones. But also, they're like, no, we're going to expand on the zones you're already playing in the base game. So there's like whole new areas, whole new stories, whole new everything. And I think they did a really good job with the DLCs on that. They do feel like you're in the same place, but they do feel completely different. They don't feel like it's just like a reskin of some shit you've already seen. You will revisit some of the places from the base game because it exists in that zone. So it might randomly pop a certain area that you've been to in the base game. But once you complete that area, you'll keep continuing the handmade DLC stuff because there's a story and a conclusion to the whole thing. I think they've done a really good job with that so far. I can't wait for the third DLC to come out, and hopefully they'll continue to support the game because I think it did way better than the first game. People have only said great things about this game, which was really cool to see. Even on my TikTok when I was recommending people to play it, and then like weeks later, people are like, "God damn, this game's like taking over my life, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, I'm fucking glad to hear that shit. Yeah. So we played the Forgotten Kingdom DLC, which is DLC 2 out of the 3. And it expands on, was it Yasha?
Yes.
Which is like a jungle realm in the base game. It does, because this is during the time that Embracer was like destroying companies, selling them off, or just like, these guys are owned by Embracer basically, and so there's a lot of unknowns to the future of Gunfire games. I think they renamed the company now, but anyway, I was worried that this DLC wouldn't even come out, but they released it, and from beginning to end, it was a lot of fun. It does in some ways feel maybe not as big as the first DLC, but given the circumstances of, their company might not existing because of Embracer, I think they did a good job on just getting it done. Really fucking hate one of the enemy types in this DLC that flies. I'll just keep it there. I love that in the first DLC, it felt very much like the base game in terms of like running around, shooting stuff, fighting boss, shoot stuff, fight boss, some secrets, nothing too crazy, except for the end boss has like a million things you can unlock from him. But in the new DLC, it seems like they put more emphasis on puzzles and like adventure, because there's one section that you're going to see in this gameplay where we had gone through just a random dungeon. It has an end and then you leave. We got to the end. There's no boss. We walk in a room. There's the item. It's purple. So it's like loot. It's like, okay, cool. We got it. We're getting ready to leave. And we step on like a pad on the ground and we hear a door. And we look over and the wall just opened up. And we're like, Yep, of course there's fucking something else here. Like, it wasn't just that item. You walk in that room, and all of a sudden 3 doors open. And there's just, like, rooms look exactly the same, just with different stuff in them. Some have chests, some have other stuff. Some of them have, like, arrows that shoot out and kill you instantly. So we did this, like, whole operation of, like, one person hold the door open, the other person, at first we're just running in, and then eventually we were getting hit by the arrow, so we would roll diagonally in, because sometimes they had, like, pads on the ground that if you touched them, you'd get killed in that room. So it's like this huge puzzle with all these different hazards, and enemies fucking spawned. One dude was like a boss type, like an elite.
The boss spawned in
Yeah,
there,
he like was fighting us in close quarters with these arrow shooting and shit. So that was cool. We ended up completing that. I won't go too far into the strategy, 'cause, you know, maybe you want to play through it and not have it spoiled for you. But very fucking cool. Then there was this whole descending puzzle tower thing we went through, where it was like almost no enemies. It was all just like hazards.
Oh,
you had
the
to, like,
Indiana Jones one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was one of the fucking coolest cooperative shooter puzzles I've ever experienced in a game. We had some hangups every once in a while, but we were getting through it. But I fucking loved that. And I don't even want to talk about it, really. I want people to experience it on their own. But, you know, if you're going to play this game and play that DLC, just play it for that alone. That was such a cool experience. Would have been interesting with a third person. But also, being as vague as possible, in the very beginning of that big puzzle, on the map there's a purple item that I had noticed. And I was like, I looked down, there's water. I'm like, I don't know how the fuck we get it. So we end up going through this thing. It took over like 20, 30 minutes.
It was pretty long, yeah.
We were in there for a fucking while. When we finished the thing and got back to the top, we're about to leave, and I was like, wait, what was that purple thing? So, like, we ran back, because I was like, I don't want to miss anything. We run back, and the water had drained, and we're able to drop down. There's a whole fight or whatever, and we go through, and we eventually find an item. And I was just like, oh my god, I fucking love just the attention to detail, and just so many things you can just miss. Including, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, just look it up if you really want to know, but the archetype, every DLC has a new archetype, which I fucking love that they do that. We beat the DLC, and I was just like, where's the archetype? Like, there was a specific place that when we went there, I was like, oh, the archetype's got to be here, because it's way the fuck out of the way. There's no checkpoint nearby. And I was like, it's got to be there. But we ended up finding an item there. I'm like, I think it was armor.
I think so.
I was like, okay, so it's like a suit of armor. That's cool. I guess that's worth the trek, because you can die here, and you have to respawn and run all the way back. We did it a couple times.
I think so was the first place we experienced traps in that DLC too. So.
And so after we beat the DLC, and we're like, where the hell's the archetype at? It was in that place. And there's a very specific thing that's crazy. Like, I don't even know who the hell found out how to get it. It's amazing to hide a class, a way to play the game, behind something so weird.
Yeah.
That someone figured it out, and, like, I think most people aren't going to be able to figure it out on their own. They're going to look it up like we did. But when you do, you're just going to go like, really? That's how you get the class? That's so weird. But someone figured it out. So anyway, I love that shit. I love just the imagination. I love that they sat around and they designed a third-person shooter with loot, but they went like, okay, a new class, where's it going to be at? Well, we're going to really fucking hide it. And if they get it, cool. And it's like, oh, okay.
It's
thanks.
a little bit reminiscent of like one of the mechanics in the base game where there's these grates.
Yep.
I'll just say that. So.
Yep. Which is also fucking weird.
Yeah.
So like, and you can mess that up, and it's just so cool the way they do it. Yeah, but the DLC was really good. For a lack of like bosses, I think there's a severe lack of bosses. The first DLC was full of bosses. Second DLC, not so much. But the second DLC had all these really cool puzzles to figure out. I don't even like puzzles. You guys know me. Like, I'm not a fan of puzzles, because I think they typically ruin the flow of the game I'm enjoying. Now I got to stop and go, well, now I got to do this. But these are like movement puzzles. So it's like platforming. And it's really, really fun. And because you know there's a promise of not only just one thing at the end of this, but possibly like 3 things, secrets upon secrets, you really want to get through it. You're like, I got to get through this Indiana Jones thing. Also, without saying anything about it, the last boss they really worked on. It's a spectacle. I did not expect it to look like that. I didn't expect it to do the things it does. And the end part of the fight, even though it's like, whew, this got a lot easier than the actual fight, is a really cool spectacle. I think it's really neat the way they did it.
Yeah, it's almost as intricate as just the last boss of the base game. That fight's
That's still the worst fight in the game.
whew.
Is the actual like end boss of the base game. But I think this boss was cooler as a spectacle, a visual spectacle, because the OG one is just like, I hate this. But in the in the new DLC, I was just like, I was like, whoa, the animations are crazy. I'm surprised they even did this. They didn't have to do this for a fucking DLC.
Yeah.
But they did, and it's awesome. Even though when you beat the DLC, you're just like, dude, is it done?
Yeah, you get the achievement and that's it.
And these run off. And I was like, there's no credits, there's no like resolution. But I guess I think these DLCs are supposed to kind of exist in your current playthrough. So you just keep playing after that. We've already beaten the game, so we're going in and just knocking that out. But if you were just organically playing the game, not in adventure mode, worth mentioning, there is a campaign mode and adventure mode, which I appreciate because if you're just grinding for gear,
allows you to reroll maps.
You can just reroll maps. You can reroll your campaign too, but you're losing all your progress in your campaign. Whereas in adventure, you pick a realm or a DLC specifically, which is nice, and you can reroll it. So it's a really good system. But yeah, DLC was awesome. The first DLC was awesome. I can't wait for the third one. The base game is fucking amazing. And let's jump into recommendations.
Yeah.
If you like cooperative shooters, this is probably one of the hardest recommendations I could give you. Whether you really like talking to each other, not quite tactical, but just like a game where you got to really work together to get through it. Cooperative shooter, to like if you like Borderlands, even though this isn't like a loot fest game, there's a lot of loot, but it's not like random loot like Borderlands.
Destiny,
yeah. But if you like any games like that, highly recommend it to you. If you like Souls-like games, I'd recommend it to you, even though it's not quite as difficult as a Souls game. It definitely borrows a lot. It has a checkpoint system. Enemies come back when you hit it. Bosses, stuff like that. You feel great when you beat a boss. It has that same conquering feel to it, but you get to play with your friends, which is awesome. If you like loot in games, if you like puzzles in games, if you like tight shooters, if you're just a fan of like a really good feeling shooter, I don't know if there's many games better than Remnant 2. Like, it just feels great when you shoot stuff in that game. If you like building, like a build archetypes, really crafting something, I'd recommend it to you. Yes, I don't really think you can go wrong with Remnant 2. So a loose recommendation to everyone except for people who possibly just hate shooters. But if you have friends, maybe you'll play with them. I don't know. I think Remnant 2 is fucking fantastic. I could recommend it to almost everybody.
Yeah. I mean, really the only thing I would add to that is, the theme of the game, which is, a dark fantasy post-apocalyptic setting. Yeah. If you're not into that, I guess it would be hard.
Well, it's got elements of fantasy. It's got elements of like dark elements, like Dark Souls-y type stuff. It has futuristic stuff. It's got post-apocalyptic stuff. Like it's got a good variety of themes.
Well, like the dark stuff, and I won't say the details of the zone, but the last zone in the base game is like pretty grim. So
yeah, especially if you played the first game.
Yeah. It definitely makes a lot more sense from the first game, but
yeah.
And then like you said, if you're into builds and stuff like that, and this game also allows you to do, just to be more specific on that, like there's like status effects, there's elemental damage, there's
You can be a healer.
basic damage, there's support, there's tanks, there's DPS. Not even like specifically in that way, but like you can craft something to be kind of in that archetype.
Something for everybody.
And also if you like kind of like bonkers weapons, and as an example, what was that shooter the Wretched Insomniac made? Was it Resistance?
Yeah, Resistance. Yeah,
had really weird weapons. This game has some pretty weird weapons
Resistance.
that are a lot of fun, and that you can just kind of go through, and if you want a basic gun, they're there, and if you want a gun that shoots laser beams or flamethrower or ricocheting bolts or whatever. It's got a bunch of stuff. So
Yeah, just real quick, I was rocking an LMG that that I had since the beginning of the game. Basically, I've upgraded completely. I use it because it just has a shitload of ammo, and I got mods and stuff on it to really make it more interesting than just shooting. And then I was rocking a flamethrower, which I thought was shit for almost the whole game. But then I got the elemental archetype, for what it's called, from the last
first
DLC. But after I got that, it opened up all these possibilities of elemental builds or status effects. And so I started using the flamethrower. Now I have this whole build where I light one dude on fire, and once he gets lit on fire, anyone within a certain vicinity also, he'll explode and they take on the same elemental damage. So there's just this wave of like pop, 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 everybody getting hit with like fire damage or whatever, which is a lot of fun. And then I have this spell that basically shoots out in a huge radius. I think I have something on that increases AoE effects, and it puts every status effect on everyone who's in that circle. And then I have something on that I do more damage per elemental thing on people. So they're stacked with everything. I'm doing more. Like, I'm just built to fucking murder shit, but I'm also kind of weak. So, and then you were rocking a gun that you could shoot somebody with, and then shoot tracking rounds like fucking Fifth Element.
Yeah, you shot a tracking round, and then after that, you could just hide around a corner and shoot, and the bolts would just go to where your first bullet went. And then it would build up a bar, and when the bar fills up, you slam the gun on the ground and cause an AoE. But then after that, you have infinite ammo for blank amount of seconds, and so you can just unload infinitely while that's going. My secondary was not a flamethrower, but a poison thrower, and so I just put out poison mist in front of me.
It was interesting. Sometimes I just be shooting fire, and then you shoot basically something similar looking, but it's just green.
Yeah.
So you're shooting gas and toxic shit, and I'm shooting fire at people.
Yeah. And then during the playthrough, I changed at the very end, but for the majority of the playthrough, I was playing, I can't remember what it's called, but essentially my ability was to take a shovel to the ground. I would dig out springs, and those springs were basically buffs that would show up in the ground. And if you walk through them, you would get it. And it would be either randomly attack, defense, stamina, or hit point regen. So, pretty fun. It has other... the thing actually we didn't mention is every archetype also has 3 types within it. And so, like, you don't have... like, you could play the same thing as someone and have completely different move set. So
yeah, you can play the same archetype, have the exact same build as somebody, like have the same 2 archetypes as somebody else, but still be using different things that those archetypes offer. And then also whatever your main archetype of the 2 archetypes are, every archetype has like a specific like ultimate ability to them, something that they do, but you can only have one of those 2 things activated. So you have to prioritize which archetype is your main one to get their main perk from it. So build potential.
Yeah. I'm rambling. It's
just easy to talk about the game.
It's a good one if you like, a little more in-depth gameplay. So
yeah, just play it. Just play Remnant 2 if you haven't played it. And if you have played it, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Jump into grades.
Okay.
I'll go first. I'm gonna go fucking big with this. I'm giving it a light A+. I fucking love this game. It has. If I had one criticism of the whole game, I only have one criticism of the whole game. Well, I'm curious to hear what yours is.
Okay.
Mine is the storytelling could be better.
Okay.
The lore is really cool. And in fact, in the DLC, we ran into this random dude who had like this backstory, and I was like,
that was so neat.
I was like, that's kind of cool. And then after that, if we never found that dude, this would have never made sense. But we found some armor, and it pertained to his story, and I was like, whoa, that's so fucking cool. So the lore is really good in the game, and there's some really cool moments, but I think the story could be told better, and I thought the same thing about the first game. So the second game is definitely better, but it still could be a better told story. Other than that, though, everything in the gameplay is awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a little tricky to do with the random nature of how the base game plays, because even your starting zone is different depending on your playthroughs.
Yeah, that is for sure tricky, yeah.
But yeah, the lore is a strong point of the game for sure. My complaint is the ping system is so hit or miss.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of the worst ping systems I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
puts me in the position of giving it a very strong A.
Yeah.
Because I think the ping is almost unusable. So, because it'll just occasionally you'll try to ping something ahead of you, and it just picks like a ledge above you for some reason.
Yeah, it's
like,
whatever technology they're using to send the information of where you're looking to the point of where it should be putting a visual. It's confused on the geometry of the room you're in.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, I'll be looking across the room, I'm up on a ledge, there's a bottom area you can still walk, and I'm up here, and I go to ping across the room, and it goes ding down there, and I'm like, no, don't even like, that's useless. It's like, that's not even info I can fucking give anybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works, specifically when you look at enemies, but sometimes you better hope there's not like a fucking like a box or something nearby, because when you go to ping the enemy and the box is kind of like here, it's gonna go ding on the box. It's like, no, the guy. But the game's a little smarter about, oh, he's looking at an enemy, ping the enemy. So it does work sometimes, but a lot of times it doesn't work very well. So
yeah, I find it to just be too frustrating to bother with. So I just try to be a little extra verbal about things I'm looking at. But
old school.
But yeah, it's otherwise I have like, even like the storytelling, though I agree, it'd be nice for them. I kind of understand why they can't, because of the nature of the base game.
And they're smart about it. They got specific hub areas that you go to tell the bigger story.
Yeah.
And a final zone to conclude that story, which is smart. Yeah. So they did a good job with what they had. I just wish the story resonated a little bit more with me when it came to the main story. But sometimes there's some beats that happen. I'm like, that was pretty cool. Real quick to elaborate on my A+, though. I gave it a light A+, which doesn't detract it at all. But I'm saying, like, I almost gave it an A. But the reason I'm giving it A+ is basically when the game first came out, I probably would have gave it an A. But it's better than the first game in every way. Since the DLCs and what they've added to it, it's just kind of concreted that this is, in my opinion, one of the best games in its genre. And so for that, I feel like I personally have to give it an A+. Even though I feel like I should give it an A, I'm giving it an A+ just because it's like best in class. I can't think of a whole lot of games that are cooperative shooters that I think are even as good as it, let alone a conversation of if it's better or not. The only other game I can think of that I would even put in that fucking area is like Deep Rock Galactic, and that's a personal thing for me because I fucking love that game too. But that game also offers a shitload of stuff. So it's like there's just some games out there that just like they just do more, offer more, and the dev cares more than somebody offering you just a generic fucking shooter. And has room for improvement. I could go heavy A+, but at this point, it's like best in class. I can't think of better cooperative shooters. So
yeah.
Anything else?
I think it covers it.
All right, so an A+ and an A. Heavy praise for a great game. Let us know in the comments what you guys think about Remnant 2. Have you played it? Have you not played it? If you haven't played it, why haven't you played it? If you have played it, what do you think about it? Have you played the base game? Have you beat the base game? Have you played the DLCs? What do you think about how they are supporting the game? What are you hoping for in the future? And what's your favorite archetype? What's your favorite weapons? What's your build? Let me know that in the comments. And what's your favorite realm? Just tell me everything you're thinking about when it comes to Remnant 2 in the comments below. Stay tuned. We'll be doing Plus Club tomorrow, talking about AEW, Fight Forever, SpongeBob, Cosmic Shake, and Streets of Rage 4. So that's the one I like remember the best normally, and I got the other two, and I was like,
right.
Oh God. We'll be talking about those, so make sure to play those. Come back, and we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, I've been Seth. This has been Chevy. Thank you, Chevy, for joining me for this episode. Thank you guys for joining us, and until the next episode, have a good one, guys, and take it easy.